Imagine this. You've just spent your whole life crossing oceans, carrying goods from one side of the world to the other. You've been battered by storms, travelled through calm seas, and probably seen some of the most breathtaking sunsets over the open water. But eventually, the day comes when it's time to retire. A ship that once carried the weight of international trade moves its last load and slowly sails into history. Now, what actually happens to a ship when it's no longer fit for the high seas? Does it just sit there, rusting away at some forgotten dock? Or is there a whole process behind taking a massive vessel out of service? In today's video, we're going to dive deep into the fascinating, and often surprising, world of ship decommissioning. From stripping a ship down to its last bolt to giving it a final resting place in the middle of the ocean, you'll be shocked by what really happens to these ocean giants. So, stick with us, because you'll never look at a retired ship the same way again. Most ships are built to last for decades, but like everything, they eventually age. A typical ship might be in service for 20 to 30 years, depending on its type. Once a ship starts costing more to repair and maintain than it's worth, or if it no longer meets modern safety standards, it's time for it to be decommissioned. But here's the twist. Ships don't just retire the way we do. They're not like cars that get scrapped after a few years. Ships are expensive to build and operate, so when they are taken out of service, there's often a long, drawn-out process. When a ship is decommissioned, the first step is to strip it of its valuable parts. Things like engines, metal, and equipment are removed and often sold or reused. These items can still be worth a lot of money. Even the parts that seem useless at first glance can find a second life elsewhere. Think of how a small piece of machinery might be repurposed for a completely different industry. But it's not just the valuable parts. The ship is carefully cleaned and inspected to make sure there are no hazardous materials left behind. As you can imagine, this isn't a quick process. Ships are huge, sometimes over 1,000 feet long, and have thousands of components. It could take months just to dismantle one ship. Once the useful parts are stripped away, the ship is usually sent to a scrapyard, often located in places like India, Bangladesh, or Pakistan, where large numbers of ships are broken down. These scrapyards are massive and can handle ships of all sizes. But here's the crazy part. The workers who do this job often don't have the safest conditions, and there's a lot of debate about the environmental impact of these shipbreaking yards. But even though it's not always pretty, these shipyards are essential. The steel from a decommissioned ship can be reused in everything from new ships to construction materials. Even though we might not think about it, that old ship might one day show up in something you see on land. Not all ships are sent straight to scrapyards, though. Some ships are given one last job before they're retired. These ghost ships are sometimes towed out to sea and sunk to become artificial reefs. While this may sound like something straight out of a pirate movie, it's actually a common practice in some parts of the world. Sinking a retired ship in the ocean can help create a habitat for marine life. It's a form of eco-friendly recycling, and believe it or not, these sunken ships often become thriving ecosystems for fish, coral, and other sea creatures. Now, not all ships are suitable for this. The ones that usually have to be cleaned and stripped of harmful materials first to ensure that they don't pollute the ocean. It's a process that's more complicated than just dumping a ship overboard, and it's also regulated by various international laws. Speaking of environmental concerns, ship decommissioning isn't all smooth sailing. One of the biggest issues with this process is that it's often done in developing countries where environmental and labour regulations are weaker. The dangers of shipbreaking include the release of toxic materials like asbestos and oil into the environment. This has led to a lot of pushback from environmental groups, who argue that the industry needs stricter regulations to protect workers and the planet. And while some companies are working to address these issues by investing in cleaner technologies or safer shipbreaking methods, there's still a long way to go before the process becomes truly sustainable. Looking ahead, there's a growing movement towards more sustainable decommissioning. Some companies are exploring ways to recycle ships in a way that minimises pollution and maximises the reuse of materials. For instance, some ships may one day be repurposed entirely, with parts of their hulls being used to create new structures like housing or bridges. There's also a push to make the entire shipping industry more eco-friendly, so ships won't need to be decommissioned as often. We might see innovations in ship design that extend the lifespan of these vessels or even make them recyclable right from the start. I'm curious, What do you think about the way we decommission ships? Do you find it fascinating that these massive vessels, which have travelled the world, eventually end up being stripped down or even sunk to create ecosystems? It's a bit of a bittersweet story, right? On one hand, we're recycling and repurposing materials, but on the other, there are serious environmental concerns about how it's done. It's not an easy answer, but it's definitely a part of the maritime world we don't often hear about. And what about those ghost ships that get turned into reefs? Have you ever heard of a retired ship becoming part of an artificial reef before? It's pretty cool how something once used for transporting goods around the world can now be home to fish and coral, isn't it? Or maybe you're more interested in the environmental side of things. Do you think the shipping industry could do more to make ship decommissioning safer and more sustainable? We're seeing some progress, but I'm sure there's a lot of room for improvement. It's definitely a topic that could use more attention. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever wondered what happens to ships after they retire? Or maybe you have some questions about the decommissioning process that we didn't cover. Either way, let's keep the conversation going and learn more together.